Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
We're good, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just showing about another 30 seconds and we'll start right at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson, and I'm the chair of the Committee of Adjustments meeting. Item number 1 is I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the October the 3rd, 2023 Committee of Adjustments meeting. I'm going to call it to order at 2 p.m. We do have quorum. I have 2 of us signed in virtually. The balance is live in the chambers. Thank you everyone for attending. For this meeting, we're using both audio and video. This meeting will be recorded and will be posted on the West Grey website at www.westgrey.com. The technology for this meeting is being managed by the West Grey staff. Please refrain from clicking buttons throughout the meeting unless prompted. Before we continue, I'm asking Communications Coordinator Ms. Ferguson to provide an overview on some of the key points for this meeting. Ms. Ferguson.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson. Before I begin, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter meeting ID 871-5038-0700. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being held in 2 locations, on Zoom as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Both members of staff and council have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Members of council and staff will be raising their hands to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance at any point during this meeting, you can send a chat message to me, Sheila Ferguson, Communications Coordinator, and I will attempt to assist you.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Item number 2 on today's agenda is the purpose of the meeting. And I'm going to ask Secretary Treasurer Ms. Wilden, please provide your comments.
Through the chair, the purpose of the meeting is to allow the presentation of 2 minor variance applications and 1 consent to sever application, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments regarding the applications. A public registry for the applications is available by email at sferguson@westgrey.com. And if any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on one of the applications, they are to provide their name and mailing address by email or via the meeting chat function for the corresponding registry. This will entitle one to be advised of a possible Ontario Land Tribunal hearing in the event the decision on the application is appealed.
Thank you, Ms. Wilden. Item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Members of the committee, if there's any interest to declare at this time, you can certainly do it. Or if one should arise during the meeting, obviously we can declare at that time. Seeing no hands, I'm going to move on to item number 4, and that's the approval of the minutes. We're looking to approve the minutes from the September 5th, 2023 Committee of Adjustments. The recommendation would be that the Committee of Adjustments hereby approves the minutes of September 5th meeting as presented. Could I get a mover to move these minutes, please? And I do see Member Hutchinson's hand, followed by Member Noon. Thank you. That'd be moved by Member Hutchinson, seconded by Member Noon. Comments or questions on the minutes from any of the committee members? You just raise your hands, please. I'm not seeing any at this time. We'll call the vote. All those in favor, if you raise your hand, please. See, all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has carried. Thank you. Item number 5 is minor variance application number A08 2023-553745 Glenelg Road 23. 5.1 is a report from the planning staff. If we could get Planner Hall to please present this file, and if you could include any written or verbal comments you may have received prior to the meeting. Planner Hall, please.
Thank you, Chair. This application is from the Thompsons, Douglas and Jane. They actually want to build an accessory building within their property, and they've run into a bit of constraint. And as a result of that constraint, they need to reduce the side yard setback from 5.2 meters to 9.1 meters. The constraint that they've run into is that they have a geothermal loop on their property and it's underground. So it's restricting where they can actually put some of the structures. So as a result of that particular issue, they've obviously had to apply for the minor variance. It does meet all 4 tests of the Planning Act. It meets the official plan. Obviously, an accessory building is a permitted use within the zone that it's located in, which is the rural zone. We feel that the minor variance is minor in nature. It is reducing it by 6 meters, but it is still providing adequate setback from the side lot line, more than 9 meters, to that particular interior side lot line. Obviously, staff feel that this is a minor variance and it's desirable because it is an accessory building to an existing use on the property, which is a single family house. And that the use is appropriate and that it is still providing adequate setbacks from the side lot line. So we do support the minor variance that is being asked for today by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Hall. That will take us to the verbal comments under 5.2. There's 2 parts to this. 5.2.1 would be the committee members, and then that would be followed by any of the public comments under 5.2.2. So we'll start with 5.2.1, committee comments. Committee members, do you have anything, any comments or questions at this time? You could just raise your hand, please. And I do not see any of you. I see none in the chambers. I see none virtually. So we will check. Okay, I'm going to close that part of it. We'll move on to 5.2.2, and this is members of the public portion. And if I can get Ms. Ferguson to please advise how members on public can participate in this portion of the meeting. And if there is anybody in the chamber that would like to speak, I was going to ask Ms. Ferguson to please identify that as well. Ms. Ferguson, please go ahead.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson. For members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, you may do so in one of 2 ways. The first being, if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know that you would like to speak. After speaking, or if you raised your hand in error, you can press *9 again to lower your hand. If you have joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can also raise your hand, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon. And at this time, Chair Hutchinson, I'm not seeing anyone online or in council chambers that would like to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. Okay, so we will move on then to 5.3, and that's decisions. So I'm going to be looking for a mover and a seconder to move this item. So if you just raise your hand, please. And it would be the recommendation that is before us by the planner. And I do see member Eccles as the mover, correct?
Yes, so move.
Thank you, member Eccles. And could I get a seconder, please? And I see member Forrester. Is that correct, please?
Correct.
Thank you. Is everyone clear on the recommendation? Do we need it read back or have any comments or questions? You raise your hand, obviously. I see none at all. Then we'll call the vote. All those in favor, you can raise your hand, please. See, all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has carried. That takes us to 5.4. Planner Hall, what would be the next steps?
The next steps is that there would be a notice of decision sent out to all the property owners within the required distance under the Planning Act. And if there are no appeals made on that particular decision, then the decision would come into force in effect. If there is an appeal, then obviously it would go to the Land Tribunal for a decision to be made before them.
Thank you, Planner Hall. Okay, that closes item number 5. That takes us to item number 6 on today's agenda. That's minor variance application number A09-2023-501-105 concession 10 NDR. 6.1 is report from the planning staff. If I could get Ms. Hall to please read the report for minor variance application A09-2023, including any written or verbal comments that you may have received. Planner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. This application was before you back in September, where the Burn North applied for a consent application to take a lot off of their property. And as a result of that, there actually is 2 minor variances that are required. minor variance for both the consent or the severed land as well as the retained land. For the severed land, there is a requirement to reduce the lot frontage and lot area for that particular lot because it does not meet the zone requirements. And for the retained land, there is a variance required for the lot area. So as a result of those requirements, they have applied to the Committee of Adjustment to reduce those variance requirements for the two pieces of property. So what is going to happen is that the minor variance will reduce the lot area for the severed land to 3.3 hectares and to 100 meters, while the variance for the retained land will reduce the area to 37 hectares rather than 40 hectares. So that is what we are dealing with before us today. As a result of the applications that were before us today, it is the opinion of the Planning Department that the variance doesn't meet the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The official plan does allow for lots to be created within the rural area, and in some cases, they do not meet every setback or area requirement. But we do feel it does meet the intent and purpose of it. The minor variance, as Grey County does permit rural residential lots to be permitted within the countryside, and those lots are typically smaller than what is permitted within the zoning bylaw. The method of resolving that issue is through a minor variance application, and both the retained and the severed lands are going through that process right now. So we believe they meet the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw by going through a process. It is definitely minor in nature. Your official plan policies do allow for severances to happen. Lot area and lot frontage, and the process that is being
Planner
undertaken.
Hall,
Yes.
I apologize. Can you just go back maybe about 3 sentences? I lost, I couldn't hear you. Just maybe 3 sentences back, please. Thank you.
Okay. So in regards, let me just put my volume up. So in regards to the official plan, the retained lot and the severed lot did meet the policies of the official plan in creating a lot and the retained lot. But as a result of that, there was a need to amend the zoning bylaw through one of two processes, either through a zoning bylaw amendment or a minor variance. The applicants have decided to proceed through a minor variance application to recognize the reduced lot size and area of the severed lot and the lot area for the retained. That process is what we're doing here today. The lot area for the retained property is 3.3 acres and has 100 meters of frontage, still adequate size and does meet the requirements to build a house and accessory buildings on it. As a result of the severance coming off, the retained lands have been reduced by approximately 3 hectares from what is required under the zoning bylaw, but still adequate to accommodate everything that is on the property right now and to continue to be used for agricultural use if necessary. So the opinion of the planning staff is that both the severed land and the retained lands are considered minor in nature and that they are desirable from a land use and building aspect, and we do support the applications.
Thank you for the detailed report, Planner Hall. 6.2 is verbal comments. Then there's 2 parts to this. One's the first part, we'll start with the committee members, and once that's completed, we will go to the members of the public. So under 6.2.1, committee members, do you have this opportunity to actually ask any questions or make any statements you may have? So if you could just raise your hand, a little bit of raised hand, if you have any comments or questions. Okay, I do not see any hands raised. So I'm going to close that part of the meeting, and I'm going to go to 6.2.2, and that's public comments. And again, I'm going to have Ms. Ferguson explain how members of the public can participate in this portion of the meeting. And if you could just advise if you received any requests from the public to speak, and if you could also identify if anybody is in the chamber that would like to speak. Ms. Ferguson, please.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson. For members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know that you would like to speak. If you have joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can also raise your hand, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with the blue or yellow hand icon. And at this time, Chair Hutchinson, there is an individual in council chambers that would like to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. And if you could just press the button there, I assume you're sitting at the desk, I can see in the corner of my screen. And if you could state your name for the record, the floor is yours. Go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Ron Davidson. I'm a planning consultant and I'm representing Elf and Don Brindorfer, who are not here today. Just quickly here, as you heard from your planner, this committee approved the consent application last month with a condition that the lot area and lot frontage requirements of the zoning bylaw be reduced. That's standard for every severance unless you're creating 100-acre lots. I was going to file the zoning bylaw amendment application because that's historically how it's been done. And your staff advised that you've taken a different approach in doing it through a minor variance, which I commend you on because it's a simpler process. Might save a couple bucks, but it's easier for staff as well. And council doesn't have to deal with passing the zoning bylaw amendment. So on that note, we applied for the minor variance, and it should be viewed as being straightforward because again, you approved the consent last month. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. It's not our normal process, but does anybody have any questions for Mr. Davidson while he's there? If you just raise your hand. Again, I do not see any hands raised. And thank you very much for the compliment on staff finding a different pathway forward for this process. Appreciate that. So that being said, I am going to move on to 6.3, and that would be the decision by the committee. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder, please, and some direction on which way we want to take this file. And I do see Member Noon. Go ahead, please.
I'll make the motion to go with the recommendation on this file.
Okay, actually, Member Townsend, I did call Member Noon. I did see her name. I apologize for not seeing yours. Member Noon, go ahead, please, and I will come back to you as a seconder, just for clarity. And you are muted there, Member Noon. Still muted. Member Noon, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. I approved the minor variance application A09 2023 for 501105 concession 10 NDR.
Thank you, Member Noon. Now I will come to you, Member Townsend. I apologize, just what I seen first on the screen. Would you so second that, sir?
I will second that. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll be looking for you for the next file there. Anyways, we do have a motion on the floor. Is everyone clear on the recommendation? All right, then I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor, you can raise your hand, please. I see all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has also carried. And I'm going to go to Planner Spencer for item 6.4, and that would be, what are the next steps?
The next steps would be that the planning department within the town is required to provide notification of the decision made by the committee. If there is any appeals made to that decision, then the town would then be required to send all that information to the land tribunal for a hearing to be held on that particular matter.
Thank you, Planner Hall. Okay, so moving right along, we're on item number 7 on today's agenda, and that is the consent to sever number B17-2023 and B18-2023-034-344 Fifth Side Road. Item 7.1 is report from the planning staff. I'm going to ask Planner Hall to speak to this one as well, and you could include any written or any comments you have received up until today's date that we haven't been able to see. Thank you. Go ahead, Planner Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report actually has both applications on it. I'm not sure if you're used to that or not, but both applications are exactly the same in size and area, in the same location on the property. So I actually just put them into one application. Not sure if you're used to that or not. Both lot areas are 0.8 of a hectare, and they have 90 meters of frontage. The retained land has over 37 hectares of land that is still retained on the property. As a result of this particular application, the property owners did retain a planning consultant, and part of that planning consultant report did provide a minimum distance separation report to ensure that these residential lots are not impacting any of the agricultural operations that are happening within the area. That particular report did show that it met the setbacks to existing barns in proximity to the proposed lots. As a result of the analysis that's required to be done for consent applications, we do have to look at various documents. And one of the documents we do have to look at is the provincial policy statement. And one of the things in the provincial policy statement is obviously to retain and protect our agricultural rural uses within the municipality and within the province of Ontario. Since these two residential developments have been located in an area that does not impact the agricultural area or the natural areas that have been identified through the County of Grey official plan, we are of the opinion that it doesn't meet the intent and purpose of the provincial plan policy. Grey County also has certain policies that have to be met. And as a result of those policies, one thing that is required is that you cannot exceed 3 severances. These lots would not exceed the 3 severances off of the original 100 acres. The minimum distance separation has been maintained and does not encroach into any type of agricultural buildings. Also, the Grey County official plan has designated 3 forested areas on the lands, but none of these forested areas are on the properties that are being severed. There is one property that was within 120 meters of that natural feature on the Grey County official plan, but between that feature and the lot is a cash crop field, so it really isn't a natural area that is adjacent to it, and staff feel that there is adequate separation between those features and the proposed lot that is being proposed. The county, your own zoning bylaw has zoned it rural and natural area, and the proposed lots will not meet the lot area and lot frontage, and obviously they will have to go through a planning process to do that if these 2 consents are approved by council. In general, the opinion of planning staff is that it meets the intent and purpose of the official plan, the County Grey official plan, and the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw, and that we support the application subject to the conditions provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Hall. Again, another detailed report. I appreciate that, and I'm sure the rest of the committee does. So 7.2 is verbal comments. Again, there's 2 parts to this. First one is committee members, followed by the members of the public. So committee members, this is your opportunity to raise any questions or make any comments you may have with this application. You should have one. If I could see you raise your hand, please, as high as you possibly could. And I believe I see Member Hutchinson's hand up. Go ahead, Member Hutchinson.
So, excuse me, this is one of the ones that I mentioned this morning about having a bottling operation. I presume that's a water bottling operation, has a legal non-conforming status. I'm just curious that it was rezoned several years ago, it says, but the land use was not carried forward into the current West Grey zoning bylaw. Why would that happen? Why would it not be carried forward if it was already rezoned? Wouldn't the paperwork, everything be there just to carry forward into the future? Like, I don't understand that. There's something, a glitch there, or how does that work? Maybe somebody can inform me. And we do have some expertise in.
Okay, I couldn't hear you finish your statement. I heard expertise and you cut off there, Member Hutchinson.
Sorry, I just saying we do have some expertise in the audience in terms of planning. So looks like he's willing to help us out.
Well, I am going to call on Planner Hall, who has this file, and possibly I would go to CBO Shipwreck, whatever one of those would like to possibly respond, and we'll start there first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I don't have the history on what happened to your zoning bylaw when you went through the last update, but it appears that there may have been a decision by the corporation or the council that you did not want to recognize certain water bottling plants that had happened in a certain time period, but I cannot answer that question for sure. If somebody else in the audience or staff have more information than that, it would definitely be helpful to understand.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Mr. Chair, it's the CAO here. We have Ron Davidson in chambers today, and he's offered to help us out here. So if you don't mind, we could go to Ron next.
Absolutely not. And I did see him move into the chair, and he probably has an idea of some of the history here. Mr. Davidson, again, sir, if you could just state your name for the record, and the floor is yours.
Yes, Ron Davidson, representing the applicant, the Langs, but sitting in here in this chair answering the question, I guess, as a former employee here of West Gray. I was planner from 2005 till about 2019 or 20, just when your former clerk retired. I can tell you what happened, or it's a very good guess as to what happened anyways. Just before I came, your previous clerk, I'm sorry, CAO, prepared the zoning bylaw. At that time, that's when that was just following amalgamation. So you took all the zoning bylaws and you made one and you called it West Gray. Without throwing anybody under the bus, but there were a lot of errors made. There were a tremendous amount of oversights. Mark Turner and myself caught a lot of these errors or oversights over the years. Mayor Eccles will recall us coming forward with what we call housekeeping amendments quite often, like to the tune of 2 or 3 a year. Durham, for example, every site-specific zoning ever approved in Durham for probably 10 or 15 years was completely missed. So again, not trying to throw anybody on the bus. I'm just saying it was, I'm assuming here, it's safe to assume it was clearly an oversight or an error. I would say there was absolutely no intention to not include the water bottling facility. As a planner, I would say that would be a wrong approach and not a fair approach after somebody went to the trouble of actually applying and being successful with that. So bottom line is I would write that off as an error or an oversight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson, and we sure do appreciate you being in chambers and alive today to take one of those questions on. I'm going to go back to Member Hudson for a follow-up. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so if you allow me some lenience, I would like to ask my question that I asked this morning in council, and maybe Planner Davidson can help us out regarding the regulations around the whole water bottling operation. And I'm not sure how that comes to be and what the rules and regulations are, but I realize it's a little bit out of the jurisdiction of what we're doing here, but if you allow me, Chair, could we ask him that question?
As long as Mr. Davidson's prepared to give a brief response to that, I think we could do that. That would give you some clarity to what you would like to know.
Thank you.
Davidson, do you have an answer, sir?
Probably not, but if I could just hear the question a little bit more specifically, please.
So what are the regulations and rules around people having a water bottling operation? Like, can I throw a hose in the river in my place and start bottling water and sell it? Or how does that work?
Fair enough. Okay, so first of all, the Grey County official plan is very clear in stating you can't do that. You would need to amend the official plan. Secondly, your zoning bylaw doesn't allow for it. The question is, how do you get to amend those documents? You would have to do a hydrogeological investigation where you hire an engineer to demonstrate that taking more than, and the litmus test is 50,000 liters per day. So if you're taking more than 50,000 liters per day, you're going to have again, an engineer that specializes in groundwater look at that. Presumably, and I'm looking at Laura, there's got to be, I'm assuming, some type of a permit required from the province. I'm going to guess there is. I see the mayor shaking his head. Probably there's smarter people in the room than I, but I'm pretty darn sure that you do need a permit from the province.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. And I do think the member, which this morning was Mayor Eccles, did speak to that, and those numbers and that statement matches up with what I heard earlier. Anything to follow up with there, Member Hutchinson?
Through the chair, sorry, if I may just interrupt. Just a reminder that we need to stick to the contents on the agenda specifically rather than kind of straying off.
Yes, and I just gave that, yes, I agree. We did know we were very close. So if we can stick to the agenda and what's germane to what we're discussing before us in the adjustment meeting, I would appreciate that. Anyways, we will move on. And I'm looking for any other hands, any comments or questions. And again, this is the committee members portion here. Member Eccles, I do see your hand. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. There is comments from the manager of Public Works about getting an entrance permit. I believe that's how it's worded, an entrance permit and a 911 sign. I doubt that it's too much trouble to get a 911 sign, but the entrance permit and knowing that corner, what would happen if we can't meet the requirements on both lots for an entrance permit there?
Thank you, Member Eccles. CDO Shipwreck, you want that one, sir?
Yes, thank you, through you, Chair. So the entrance permit application and approval is a condition of the consent. So if for some reason the Public Works review the situation and determine that an entrance would not be permitted, then they would not be able to meet the condition of the consent, and the consent would be after the 2 years would lapse, and there'd be no severance there. If one was acceptable, the one would proceed, and if the other one wasn't, then it would. That's sort of the process. We only require them to apply for the entrance permit and receive an entrance permit. They're not required to install the entrance as part of a condition, just to receive the entrance permit.
Okay.
Thank you. Anything further there, Member Eccles?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions from the committee members? If you raise your hand, just maybe have to move it a little bit, and then that would certainly help. I don't see any in the chamber. I see none virtually. So, excuse me if I don't see you. I am going to move on to the next part of the meeting. That's 7.2.2, and that's member of the public. And again, I'm going to go to Ms. Ferguson to explain how members of the public can participate in this portion of the meeting. And if you can advise if you have anybody signed in that would like to speak, or if you do have someone in chambers like to speak to the application. Ms. Ferguson, please.
Through you, Chair Hutchinson, for members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, you may do so in one of two ways. If you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know that you would like to speak. If you have joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can also raise your hand, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon. And at this time, I'm not seeing anyone online wishing to speak. I am seeing an individual in council chambers waiting to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Ferguson. And I would think that would be Mr. Davidson, who is still at the desk in my camera. Go ahead, Mr. Davidson, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. So I am representing again, Joni and Wayne Lang on this application, or these two applications. They chose not to come today. Wayne, I believe, had a knee operated on, and he's not moving around too quickly. As you heard from your planner, it passes the tests of a severance. Those tests are: does it conform with the County of Grey official plan, and is it consistent with the provincial policy statement? And it checks both of those boxes. Just like the last application that you dealt with a minor variance, this one too requires relief from the zoning bylaw. And I just happen to have a minor variance application on that chair there that I'm going to deliver along with a check on my way out. One last thing I'll say with respect to Mayor Eccles' comments on entrance. I know where he's coming from on that one, on severed lot number 1, the corner lot. I myself, when I saw the site a couple of months ago, the sight lines are good. It's not perfectly flat. I wondered if would be an issue, and then I realized, well, if you can't get it off the one road, you should be able to get it off the other, because corner lot obviously fronts onto two roads. So I'm, for what it's worth, I'm sure that there will be an entrance permit allowed on both of those lots. That's it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Okay, so Ms. Ferguson, you have anybody else that would like to speak, or is that to conclude this portion of the meeting?
No, there's no one else wishing to speak at this time.
Well, thank you. So we're going to move on to 7.3 decision. And I am going to go to Member Townsend. I apologize for not seeing you last time, but I will go to you, sir, if you would like to move.
Yes, I will move the recommendations.
Member Townsend, could I get a seconder, please? And I do see Member Eccles. You'll be seconding that, sir?
Yes, it would. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is everyone clear on the recommendation that we're voting on? If not, if you just raise your hand, please. Yeah, I see no hands. All right, so we're going to call the vote. All those in favor, if you raise your hand, please. See, all members are in favor. There's none opposed. That motion has also carried. And I'm going to go to 7.4, and that would be next steps. And I'm going to go to Planner Hall, please.
The next steps for a consent application or severance is that the applicant is now required to fulfill all those conditions that have been provided to them within the time frame under the Planning Act. If there are appeals that are received from the public as a result of this particular application, the matter may be before the Land Tribunal for a hearing, and then the decision of the tribunal will have to be adhered to. And there is a time frame for the fulfilling of the severance application conditions if there is no hearing required.
Thank you, Planner Hall. So that actually takes us to item number 8, and the next meeting is scheduled for November the 7th, 2023 at 2 p.m. And item number 9 would be that I would declare the business on today's agenda is complete, and we do stand adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contribution and for your attendance this afternoon, and have a great week. Thank you.
Thank you.